Welcome to Northern Lights, Canadian Women in Tech and Business. My name is Berlin Mather, and through this podcast, we'll explore the lives and stories of some of the most dynamic and successful women in business and technology throughout Canada. My mission is to inspire young Canadian girls that anything is possible, and with these stories, I hope they garner knowledge, fortitude, and the perseverance to pursue their dreams. I'm so excited to be speaking to Lisa Melchoir on this new exciting project. Lisa is the founder and managing partner of Virtue Capital, a Toronto-based private equity firm specializing in high-growth technology investments. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, her expertise expands application software, healthcare IT, clean tech, tech-enabled services, and industrial technology. Her career includes significant roles at OMERS Private Equity and CIBC World Markets. Outside of Virtue, Lisa serves on boards of Real Matters, the Toronto Biennial of Art, and is the chair of the Canadian Women in Private Equity Mentorship Program. Lisa holds an MBA of the Schulich School of Business and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of Western Ontario. Most recently, Lisa was named one of Canada's most powerful women, Top 100 for 2023 by Women's Executive Network, highlighting her trailblazing efforts and accomplishments in the private equity sector. I'm so delighted to have Lisa join me today. Lisa, thank you so much for being part of Northern Lights, Canadian Women in Tech and Business. I'm so excited to be able to speak with you today.
Well, Berlin, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm very, very excited about what you're doing with Northern Lights, and I love the fact that you are showcasing women in the tech industry, and I love your mission that anything's possible, because it is.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I have a great list of questions that I would like for us to get through today. And I was hoping for you to start by sharing with us your journey into the world of private equity and maybe touching on what inspired you to focus on the technology sector.
Sure. Well, I say that my journey in private equity started at almost the beginning of my professional career. So I graduated with a business degree, an MBA, in the early 1990s and started out of business school in investment banking at CIBC. And after only 2 years of investment banking, realized that was not the world for me. But luckily, CIBC had a merchant bank, which is another way of, a merchant bank is another name for private equity. And I was able to move into the merchant bank in 1996. And really, my career has flourished from there. In terms of the tech sector, CIBC Capital Partners, the merchant bank, was one of the most active investors in this asset class in the country at the time. And back then, there was a lot of the really early investments in the technologies that underpin the web, frankly. And I was able to, by virtue of being there, see things from the development of some of the tech investments from the beginning. A couple things were obvious to me. One, it was a very dynamic and exciting place to be honing my skills as an investor. And two, that investable universe would only continue to grow and grow and grow. And here we are, 25 years later, and the investable universe for technology still continues to grow. So that's really the story in a nutshell of how I got into this sector.
Yeah, what an incredible journey you've had, and congratulations on all of your success. I think, it's so incredible and inspiring to hear about all of your achievements. I'm really curious to know what motivated you to found Virtue Capital, and how's its mission aligned with your personal vision for the industry?
Well, I love that question because the answer is in the question without you probably realizing it, or maybe you did realize the answer is in the question. On the one hand, I launched Virtue because I saw a market opportunity that I felt that, based on my experience, is very well suited to address. So this category of growth private equity, which is a stage that Virtue invests in the technology space, is one that is underserved in Canada, and there's a great opportunity for investing there. But the second motivation, and equal to the first, was that I wanted the opportunity to build a private equity firm that's aligned with my personal, my personal vision for how business, private equity business should be run.
Mhm.
That's an opportunity that I couldn't pass up.
Yeah.
As many people may know, private equity is still an extremely male-dominated business. At the very senior levels, over 90% of leadership in private equity is still male. So there are a few women running private equity businesses out there, and there's a lot of reasons behind that. But the one way to change it is to be a woman that leads a private equity business. And so, having a blank sheet of paper to build something is a gift, and being able to build, from the ground up, a firm that aligns with my values and way of doing business, and being able to attract the kind of talent that otherwise may not be attracted to the traditional firms, that has been a real source of joy.
Mhm. That's great. And, I realize how complex it can be to be in this industry. And, even with all the amazing highs you've had, I was wondering if you could maybe touch on some of the significant challenges you faced in your career and how you overcame them.
Well, this career is a journey that never ends, which is one of the wonderful things about it. There's always something new I'm learning,
Mhm.
and you learn a lot at the very beginning of your career, but those learnings and challenges that you overcome are all compound to give you the wisdom to be a really knowledgeable investor over time.
Mhm.
So challenges, inherent in the business is, investments that may not go exactly the way you expect them to. Um, as an investor, a private equity investor, you are entering into a long-term ownership arrangement with a company. So we typically invest in companies for 5 years. And so sometimes when you're making the investment, you think you know who you're partnering with, and then you get into the investment, and those relationships sometimes are challenging. So working through challenging relationships with management teams or other investors, and particularly as a woman, and when I started my career as a young woman, can be very trying,
Mhm.
because you know the to this day, unfortunately, but especially in the early days, I was almost always the only woman around the table. And when you're around a board table, many very significant decisions are being made. And if you disagree with the rest of the table, it takes a lot of fortitude to stand up, to be heard, to make your case. And I will confess that at the early days, it was sometimes hard to be heard, and to make my case.
Mhm.
Um, and over time, when I realized over time that actually my point of view, like, I should have pushed harder because I was right in that moment. And, in full time, in retrospect, had I pushed harder, maybe we could have avoided a pitfall or a problem.
Mhm.
And, really beating myself up about, it's my fault that I wasn't, forceful enough or something.
Mhm.
Um, how I overcame that was by honing well, first of all, over time you get more confident, and then you can push your agenda harder. Uh,
Mhm.
but also realizing that it's not always up to my responsibility to make sure that the other folks are listening to me, that people should listen because it's the right thing to do, regardless who's talking.
Yeah. And, you raised some really important points there about gender diversity, and it really must have taken so much courage to, continue on and make your case, which is really just incredible. And I think we will go further into that later on. Um, but you mentioned your company, Virtue Capital, and I think it would be great to hear what are some of your proudest achievements and how have they impacted the companies you've worked with?
Well, certainly my proudest achievement here so far is with the team that's been assembled. It is really difficult to stand up a brand new private equity firm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. And the reason why it's difficult is because you're building a brand, and you need the talent to be able to make the investments, and you also need the funds, and so you're trying to put it all together. And the objective for me was to build the highest quality private equity fund in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you need to attract excellent talent. And attracting excellent talent when you're a startup is a challenge, but it was also the fact that I was able to attract the kind of talent that we've got here, the partners that I have and the junior folks, and see them flourish and us come together as a team. And the fact that over 5 years, the majority of the team's been together for 5 years, we've really not lost anyone other than folks that went back to school, is I think a reflection of the quality of the team, how aligned we are and cohesive around the mission and the objectives of what we're building, and just the quality of the culture. So, that certainly is the proudest achievement by far.
Yeah, I can only really imagine how amazing your team is and also how much work probably went into it to create something so strong and amazing. And, given the current emphasis on gender diversity, kind of circling back to that topic, and, considering your role as chair of Canadian Women in Private and the Private Equity Mentorship Program, how do you see the role of mentorship advancing gender diversity in the industry?
Yeah, so what happens in private equity today is we actually have probably close to parity, gender parity in the junior roles.
Mm-hmm.
So call it the analyst or associate roles. Certainly much more even.
Mm-hmm.
But we tend to lose women in our industry in the mid-levels and moving on to senior levels. And the only way we're going to move the needle on gender diversity here is if we can keep women in the industry at those very critical stages, so that they can move to leadership positions, deal lead, being on the investment committee, and then hopefully ultimately running their own firms.
Mm-hmm.
That so the mentorship program that I started back a few years ago, the objective was really to target, in my mind, to target those women, to target those high potential women who are making their way through their career, and connect them with senior women, of which we're a very small but very connected group, the senior women in private equity in this country. So it was not hard to convince them, almost all of them, to participate in this mentorship program and take on, a mentor or two, a mentee or two, just to be there for them. Because it can be a lonely place if you are, one woman on the investment team of a private equity firm, then you've got no one to talk to internally. So having someone to talk to, having someone to just, share experiences, advice, hey, like, how should I handle this? That is a small step, but a critical step in hopefully keeping more women in our industry.
Hmm. You made some really great points there, and I think that leads perfectly into my next question, which is how do you believe your work has impacted the place of women in business and technology?
Um, I hope I've played some small role in allowing, it to be normalized that there should be senior women in our industry. I sit on the boards of our investments. I chair the boards of many of them, and my experience is in doing so that within those companies themselves, so we invest in technology businesses, that more and more women feel comfortable seeing themselves in the C-suite. So whether it's CEO or CFO or Chief Product Officer, one of my proudest moments was when we were invested in a company called Firmex, where we were, there was a senior product development role opening, and there were two internal candidates, a man and a woman, and uh, the woman candidate may have been overlooked in another scenario, but she met me through her presentations to the board, and it really, I think, gave her the little bit of confidence to put her hand up for the job, and she got it, and she did an excellent job. So these are small steps, little steps, but many little steps can make big change.
Hmm. I think it's wonderful, to see more women gain confidence, as you mentioned, and, take that step forward and take on greater roles and, kind of really show that advancement in gender diversity. And I think our listeners would really like to hear what advice would you give to young women aspiring to enter the field of private equity or tech investment?
Let's see, go for it. It's an amazing career. If you're an intellectually, on the private equity side, if you're an intellectually curious person who likes dynamic environments, there's no 2 days are alike for me. I often get asked, like, what's an average day? There is no average day in my life.
Hmm.
Every day is different. I learn something new every day, and I'm meeting very, very cool people who are doing very cool things all the time. And then, in the technology space, look, there's no question that future just continues to grow and grow and grow. So if you're looking for career opportunities in tech, I mean, the world's your oyster. So, and the intersection of the two is very, very specific. That's where I play, right? And financing the technology space. It's, to me, perfect fit if you're inclined to investing in finance. But both business or finance and tech are underrepresented by women, and it's, to me, crazy because women are naturally suited, I think, to
Hmm.
my industry anyway. If you're someone who listens well, can you can process a lot of different inputs and make a great judgment call. I mean, that's what our business is about.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And, great to hear that you're also constantly meeting new people and experiencing new things every single day. I was thinking we could kind of switch gears here and do more of a scenario question. So let's just say you're in high school and you really want to get involved in private equity. What's one thing you should be doing right now to prepare?
So one thing I will encourage every person who's in high school right now is not to overly prepare for your future. That's going to sound very counterintuitive. I have three daughters who are now, the youngest is in university, but the pressure that they felt to decide, their career at an early age, I think is, um, for private equity anyway, you do not need to do anything specific in high school to be prepared for private equity.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say if you enjoy math, I think that's probably one prerequisite. And not in that, or not enjoy it so much as you're good at it. It's not, our business is you need to understand math in order to be a decent investor, but it's definitely not all my life is not surrounded by numbers all the time. You have to be someone with good judgment. You have to be someone with good interpersonal skills.
Mm-hmm.
I have a liberal arts undergrad degree, and that gives me the breadth to be able to engage with people on many topics, which is something that's important in the private equity world, in my opinion, because you're always meeting new people, as I said, and being able to form a relationship with a person on something that's on common ground is one way to build trust and build a relationship quickly. If you're somebody who's very focused on one thing, whether it's science or math or golf or whatever that one thing is, your universe of people that you will connect with is by definition smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, my experience, a good private equity professional is someone who has some breadth to them, and eventually you'll figure out whether you have the true interest on the investing side to be an investor, because private equity is an investing role. There are steps that are to be taken before you get into private equity. Typically, people don't get into this business out of school. You usually do a few years as either in investment banking or accounting or consulting, for instance.
Mm-hmm. That's great to hear. And, thank you so much for that advice. Before we get to our last question, I'm very interested to know what's your vision for the future of Virtue Capital?
I believe Virtue's going to come out to be one of the top, if not the top, private equity firm in the country, and there's really no limit to what we can build here. So it's just continued growth, and in the most near term, the brand of being Canada's top growth private equity fund, top tech fund. So there you go.
Yeah, wonderful to hear. And, I just really want to thank you for your time and for sharing your experience and advice on private equity and your insights on gender diversity. It really is so important. And I have one last question for you, which is,
Sure.
how do you hope to be remembered career-wise in the world of private equity and beyond?
So one thing, and I can't remember if it was in your bio, that happened without me realizing it is, at the time rather, and I've since learned, is that I'm the first woman in Canada to start a private equity fund, which I think was shocking to me when I found out, because I found out in 2023. I want to be remembered as someone who broke that glass, and after that, there's tons of women starting private equity funds. It's important to me to take that role and responsibility very seriously, and illustrate and show women that it's not only is it you can be successful, but you can have fun doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
build a great business.
Yeah, I love that. What a great answer. Lisa, it's been an honor to speak with you. Your remarkable impact on private equity and even more so on advancing gender diversity in the industry is really so inspiring. And, thank you so much for your valuable time and for sharing such great advice with our listeners.
My pleasure, Berlin. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Of course. Have a great day.